In 1845, 129 men left England to find a sea route. They never returned. 2 ships sank, but what we pulled from the cold changed everything. They were called Erebus and Terror, powerfully built, well provisioned, yet decades of searching found only pieces, graves, a scrap of a log, Inuit testimony, then, centuries later, wrecks beneath the Arctic Sea. 2 Royal Navy ships, well-built, heavily provisioned. They were not amateur sailors. The last official communication came in 1845 from Greenland, and after that, silence. By 1848, families and the Admiralty began mounting searches. Searchers found small graves on various islands, and later, European artifacts turned up in Inuit communities. Islanders and later explorers reported sightings, abandoned camps, graves, and scattered objects, but crucially, no definitive survivor testimony. One message, scratched into paper and left in a cairn, told the Admiralty the ships were abandoned and that officers and men were dying. In the 21st century, divers pulled hundreds of objects from Erebus, perfectly preserved tools, bottles, a hairbrush, tiny windows into their last months. Victorians prized canned food, but some cans were poorly made, and 19th century surgical reports later suggested scurvy and starvation were problems. Unverified, post-mortem examinations of remains discovered later also showed signs of lead exposure and malnutrition. Piecing together the timeline, ships trapped in ice, crew abandoned ship, small groups attempted to walk south, graves and artifacts left behind. Some men abandoned ship. They tried to walk south across the ice. Groups splintered. Small cairns marked names and dates. One message, scratched into paper and left in a cairn, told the Admiralty the ships were abandoned and that officers and men were dying. Forensics on bones later showed cut marks consistent with survival cannibalism in extreme cases, a grim sign of desperation, but one we should present soberly and without sensationalism. Cut marks on bones, not from post-burial disturbance, but made before death in ways consistent with survival cannibalism. This discovery reframed the expedition. Some scientists argue lead from soldered tins and ship fittings caused neurological decline, poor decision-making, and ultimately death. Evidence is mixed. In the 21st century, explorers discovered one wreck and then the other, confirming the final resting places of both ships. When Parks Canada located the wrecks, archaeologists could finally study context, hull damage patterns, preserved equipment, personal items. Wreck positions show the ships didn't sink in the same spot. One was crushed by ice, the other shows different damage patterns. One appears crushed by ice and abandoned in place. The other shows signs suggesting an attempted scuttling or final drift. This was not rumor. Forensic teams documented consistent patterns across remains. For many, this reframed the expedition from a tragic disappearance to an active story of collapse. Leadership failed, bodies failed, and men made impossible choices to survive. Lead likely worsened minds and bodies, but alone it didn't explain the final acts. Analysis suggests the 2 ships did not share a single fate. Damage patterns and artifact distribution hint one ship was crushed by ice and the other drifted and sank later. That means survivors' choices differed based on which vessel they were on, a fracturing of the story itself. Beyond theories are names, men who wrote letters home, who carved initials on objects. Inuit oral history describes encounters and exchanges that challenge early European accounts. Recently, collaborative work with Inuit elders has reframed interpretations and recovered traded items that tie the story to living communities. Here's the most credible answer. Not a single cause, but a lethal blend. Ships trapped by unexpected ice, supplies degraded, disease and lead and scurvy weakened crews, desperate marches scattered survivors. This isn't a neat single cause, it's an accumulation of failures and misfortune. The Franklin story matters because it's about exploration's human cost, the limits of technology, and cross-cultural encounters. Every season, new fragments surface. Each artifact and each oral testimony nudges the story closer to truth, but never neat. If this story moved you, like and subscribe. Tell us, which single discovery surprised you most? I read every comment.